Hi everyone, my name is Jeremy and I'd like to invite you to come look over my shoulder as I play through
Love Letter, a game for 2 to 4 people designed by Seiji Kanai and published by the Alderac Entertainment Group.
Alright, so let's take a look at what you get when you open up the box. Now, depending on how you get it, inside the box will be a bag. One of the nice things about this game is it's extremely portable. Okay, everything kind of fits in this little bag that you get right here. Now, what I've done is sleeved the cards that I got, because we play this an awful lot and I don't want the cards running out here or kind of rubbing off the pictures there. You get 13 little cubes, and these are supposed to represent the love letters. Because what'll happen here is you're going to play very, very short rounds, and so whoever wins a round gets a cube, just as a little marker there. You're going to get a handful of cards here. No, whoops. You get one rule book. Okay, put that off to the side there. It tells you how the game gets played. And then we flip this over, flip these all over, I should say, and you get a bunch of cards, and you get 4 kind of reference cards. And the way the reference cards work here, what you'll notice here is they outline the different cards here. Now, on the left-hand side is the value, the point value of the cards, and on the right-hand side, in parentheses, is the number of those cards that appear in the deck here. And then a brief little description as to what each card does. Okay, so you get that. You get 4 of those, 1 for each player, because this is a game, like I said before, from 2 to 4 players. And then here are all the cards. And that's all you need. There's not even all that many cards, just a handful. That's what's in the box. Alright, now the setup of the game is pretty straightforward. You just want to have your 13 little cubes here off to one side. Now the number of cubes that you need to accumulate to win kind of depends on the number of people, but essentially what it is as long as you've got like the majority of the cubes. Okay, so there's 13 of them here, so if you had 2 people playing, you'd be the first person to get to 7 because that puts you up over half. And the same sort of thing if you've got 3 people divided by 3, 4 people divided by 4. Then number 13 just is prime, so it doesn't work out nicely that way. So there's always going to be a number that's a clear winner here. Then what you do is you take your cards, we're going to shuffle them all up. Now, I'm going to show you the setup for a 2-player game, and then I'm going to show you the setup for a 3 and 4 player game here. If you've got just two people playing, what you'll do is you'll throw down a card, and it'll stay face down. Then you'll throw up 3 cards that are all face up. Next, okay, so these will kind of stay off to the side here. Each player, if there's 2 players, is going to get a card, a single card, and then you put the rest of the cards in as a draw deck right in the center there. And that's what you do if it was a 2-player game. Now, if it's a 3 or 4 player game, what you do is you'd shuffle it all up, and this is just slightly different. Just slightly different. You'll throw 1 card out that you'll leave face down, and this has kind of got to go off to the side here, and I'll explain why that's got to be there. The first few times we played this game, I misunderstood the rules, didn't realize that this had to happen every time. And then we ran into a situation in a game where all of a sudden, oh my gosh, wouldn't it have been convenient if there was another card there, and I'll explain how that works. And then, okay, if there's 3 or 4 players, each person gets a card, draw deck in the middle, and the game is about to begin. Right, let's talk quickly about how the game works here, and it's very, very straightforward. So here's my card in my hand. On my turn, I've got a card in my hand. I'm going to draw a new card. I look at my 2 cards here, and then I'm going to have to play a card. And that's it. So that is essentially it, really, in this game. You have a card, you draw a card, you play a card, you take its action, the next player plays. The idea there is to be able to eliminate another player and then kind of knock everybody off until you're the last one standing. Now, if we get to the very end and everybody's taken the last card, basically as soon as this discard pile, or sorry, this draw pile is gone, everybody's taken their action, then everybody reveals what card they have, and whoever's got the highest card, and in this case 8 is the highest card, the princess, whoever's got the highest card is the final, the winner of that particular round, and they would grab a love letter, a little cube here. Then you would shuffle up all the cards and you would deal them out and it would start again. Okay, let's talk quickly about what each of the cards does here. So let's say that you decide you're going to play the guard. So what the guard allows you to do is you're going to choose another player and you're going to name one of these other cards here. Basically, you're guessing to see if that other person has that card. If you get it right, and that person should be honest, okay, if you get that right, that person is eliminated. If you get it wrong, that's it. You're done. Now, that turn's done and it moves on to the next player here. Now, the only thing you can't do is you cannot guess guard if you're using the guard. That's because there are a lot of guard cards out there and the probability is quite high that they would have a guard. So you don't guess guard. You have to guess one of these other cards when you're guessing. The priest, valued at 2. What you're going to do with the priest here is you're going to choose a player and they are going to secretly show you what their card is, so you'll know what they've got in their hand. Okay? The next one, number 3, is the Baron. Now that this is a powerful card, and it can be kind of annoying at certain times here, and I'll explain in just a second here, but what you do here is you secretly, okay, if you play the Baron, you're going to choose one of the other people here. Now bear in mind, at this point here, when you're choosing to play a card, you're going to have the Baron and another card in your hand, okay? And what you're going to do is you play the Baron and you're going to choose another player, you're going to secretly compare the other card here, and whoever's got the lower of the 2 numbers there between you and that other person is going to be out. Now, it's really important when you go out on a Baron. Okay, so let's just say, for example, that let's say I had the priest. We've already talked about the priest. Let's say I had the priest here, and I don't know why I would do this, but let's say I play the Baron, okay? I show the person my priest. That other person had the princess. Ugh, I'm lower, I'm out. When I put my card down, I want to make sure, because we've compared in secret here, that I don't reveal this card. I keep this one face down. Because if I drop the card, like for example, if I drop the card and I had a prince there, at a number 5, then other people would know that whatever card my opponent had was larger than a 5. So we don't want to give them that hint. So you'd keep that face down here. Now, where the Baron is really troublesome is when you get 2 Barons in your hand, because it's a low number. But if you got 2 Barons in your hand, then you are forced to compare with somebody else, and that can be a little frustrating. The Handmaid. The Handmaid is wonderful. If you play a Handmaid in front of you, as long as the Handmaid is visible in front of you, and normally what we do when we play the game here is when I start to put cards down, what we do is we kind of lay them out like this. Okay, this way we can see what's been laid out here, and everybody can see it. So if everybody puts their cards out like this, you can use kind of process of elimination to determine what cards are still in play. But the beautiful thing about the Handmaid, when you play the Handmaid, is nobody can use an attack against you. You're safe for that round until your Handmaid gets covered. The Prince. With the Prince, when you play a Prince, you're going to choose one of the other players and you're going to, or yourself for that matter, you're going to force them to discard their card and pick up another card. Okay, now, where this becomes kind of tricky here is, let's say that you're playing one other person and that person's played the Handmaid. Okay, if you play the Prince, then you are forcing yourself. Okay, you're forcing yourself to discard your card and pick up another one. When the Prince gets played, somebody has to change their hand. That's different than the guard here. If you're playing with some other person here and they played the Handmaid, you played the guard, well then nothing happens because you can't guess. They're protected. But with the Prince, somebody is going to have to change their cards here. The reason why that's difficult, let's jump ahead to the Princess. The only rule for the Princess's card here is that if you discard this card, you lose. You're out. So let's say that my opponent has the Handmaid and I play the Prince and I've got the Princess in my hand. Well, I'm forced to discard the Princess. I lose. I'm out. Okay? But it is fun, however, if you play the Prince on somebody and they have the Princess and then you force them out at that hand. In fact, that's usually what you're doing here. The King. The King, when you play the King, you choose one other person in the group and you and that person will exchange cards. To be honest, I have very seldom been in a situation where that was beneficial to me when I played it. More often than not, when I had to play that card, it was more beneficial to the other person. Merely because when it comes around to their turn, they would know what I have and then they can use a guard. And again, guards come up quite frequently, and they would be able to guess what I am here. So, but the king forces you to exchange hands with somebody. The countess. Okay, when essentially when the countess gets played, that usually is telling other players, giving them a hint here, because what it says on the countess's card, it says if you have this card and the king or the prince in your hand. So if you've got a hand that looks like this or a hand that looks like this, you have to play the countess. Okay, countess goes down. So when somebody sees the countess go down, they are going to assume that you've got either one of those cards. However, you got to bear in mind when that happens that if you had these pair of cards as well, the countess and the princess, you've got to throw out the countess as well. And that typically gets forgotten. Most of the time when the countess comes out, you assume it's one of these two. However, it is possible for it to be the princess as well. And for that matter, even my daughter, who's quite young, she has played the game where she has discarded this, even if she didn't have one of those cards, just to throw me off. She's devious, that one. So, yeah, there's a reason that you would have to discard it, but that's not necessarily true. You could discard it just to throw somebody else off here. And we've already talked about the princess. Now, remember that when all the cards have been played, and let's go back to this one right here. Let's go to the end of the game here. Let's say that the very last card to be played was the prince, and you force someone to discard their hand. Well, if it's the very last move in the game, they need to still pick up a card. That was what that extra card was about, that was played out earlier. At the beginning of the game when you're doing the setup, you had a card that was out here. If the prince is the last card played, then that person's going to pick up that card to finish the game. And at that point, you would, if you got to the end there, everybody flips over their cards. Whoever's got the highest number is going to win the game, or at least that round. And they pick up a love letter. Well, everyone, that's Love Letter. Now, I got to admit, when I first heard of this game and heard the name Love Letter, I was a little skeptical, but I had read some really good reviews about it, and so I thought I'd give it a chance. A really inexpensive game. You can see there's really not much to it, but it's an excellent game. Okay, it's short, which makes it wonderful. And I'm going to talk about that in just a second here, but it's also very accessible. My children, when they were quite young, could figure this out here. In fact, my daughter, who right now is 7, we've been playing this for quite a long time here. She can beat me every once in a while with this. So it's not a very hard game to get your head wrapped around once you've played it a little bit and get used to what the characters do. But one of the things that really made me fall in love with this game was an incident I had with my son a long time ago. When he must have been 9 or 10 at the time. We were playing the game, and he picked up his card, looked at it, and he thought for a second, and then he looked at me and said, "I can't win this." And it was this wonderful moment where I realized that he had really put together the logic of his hand and came to the conclusion that he couldn't win. He was really thinking it through. So this game allowed me to see that kind of mental development in my son, and at that moment I just loved it. It isn't, however, a game that's really, really deep. It's not the kind of game that you plan to go over to someone's house and we're going to play Love Letter all night. It's well, no. This is more of a over a cup of coffee sort of game. That you play with your friend while you're talking about other things and you're playing along here, because there's really no deep thinking. You pick up your card, you look at it, then you make a quick decision and away you go. And if you lose, so what? You just play again. You play through the game real quick. It's excellent that way. It does rely on a fair bit of luck. Okay, I won't deny that. The cards, which cards you pick up, kind of random. When you make your guess. If you're the guard, you're going to try to knock somebody out. It's pretty random here. But there is enough logical connections that have to be made there, that have to be thought through to make this game really, really endearing. It's one of the most played games in our house, really, because it is that simple, that easy. And like I said, my daughter and I will use it every once in a while just to kind of wind her down at the end of the day. It's a great little game. I recommend you go out and get it.